good morning, and welcome to TCA. My name's Christian.
Good morning. I'm Andy.
Hey,
Welcome
Andy.
to Northern California, Christian.
Yeah, we are on location at Elements Manufacturing.
We are. We talked a little bit about this last week. We're here with Kristy and Dave from Elements Manufacturing. And guys, just take a couple minutes and introduce yourself.
I'll give it to Kristy first.
I'm Kristy. I have worked here about 19 years. I'm a project manager and co-owner.
Yeah, all right. Kristy, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for coming out.
Yeah, Dave?
I'm Dave Wright, and I'm the Vice President of Operations here. I've also been with the company a long time. I started in the early 2000s for a couple of years as project manager.
Yeah.
And I came back about 4.5 years ago to do what I do now.
Okay, all right.
Good, very good.
All right, which is just a little bit of everything, right,
Yeah.
Dave?
Anybody who's in operations knows that you're kind of all over the map.
You're all over the place, but that's great. So all right, so everybody watching, remember we are live. So if you want to ask us a question, shoot us a little comment, tell us where you're watching from. Just put it in the chat.
Yeah, it's a little different time. So this is another reason why you subscribe to the channel. You like the Facebook page so you can get those notifications
Follow us
when
on
we're
Facebook,
not on schedule.
subscribe
Yeah.
to YouTube, yeah, and if you have any questions for Kristy or Dave here at Elements Manufacturing, put it in the chat.
Yep.
And we'll get to them.
Yeah, we'll monitor the comments from here.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so we're excited to be here for a couple of reasons. We last year we did a couple of on-site interviews for our TCA, and it went really well. The feedback that we're getting from everybody is that you'd much rather hear from people that are actually doing this than us that are theorizing how things are going out in the field. And the interesting thing has been that while I think across the country, the thing that I like the most about our industry is that we're all the same person. I may have a different accent from Christian, I may have a different accent from folks in California, but we're all the same person. But when we have challenges to our industry and to the economy as a whole, we all have to pivot in different ways. And so the interesting thing about these on-site visits has been to find out what's been going on locally and how customers have had to, in some cases they've pivoted, in some cases they've reinvented themselves to be able to make it through the new challenges that were unforeseen.
Yeah.
And that's not anything that's really different than what we've learned. We got in yesterday. We had a chance to spend some time with Dave and Kristy. Had a nice dinner last night. The weather for you guys in North Carolina or on the East Coast, the weather here is really nice. So I hope you're not too jealous. But we had a nice dinner, and we got a lot of time to just kind of understand kind of some of the challenges, some of the successes, some of the challenges that were a part of 2020, and I think that we talk a lot about the industry as a whole, some of the research that we've done. Mortgage rates low, housing starts up, different things that we're hearing, and those are typically averages across the country, but drilling down to a local economy, in this case more of just a Northern California economy. I'd like to take some time and maybe let you guys just talk some about what was 2020 to Elements Manufacturing.
It was a tough year. When the pandemic first hit at the beginning of 2020, everybody went home first off, and that was weird.
Right.
We were fortunate to have a large senior housing job in the shop, and that was one of the exceptions that the state made. If you're building senior housing, you can stay open. So
Okay, all right.
we social distance everybody
Right.
in masks, had a small crew here. I think Kristy was the only person who actually stayed in the office.
Yeah.
The rest of us all went work from home.
Sure.
And we were able to keep the lights on basically and keep a couple of jobs moving through, but it was really hard.
Sure.
But we made those adjustments. Then we started to see probably around July or August, commercial work really taper off. And Elements has always been, not always, for probably the last decade, we've been a almost entirely commercial shop.
Sure.
We might have one large residential job going through,
Yeah.
but other than that, we're about 99% commercial.
Wow.
So when people stopped going to office buildings, a lot of that work really contracted. So as Andy mentioned a minute ago, we had to adapt. And so we have been pivoting, and we can talk a little bit more about that.
Kristy, what was it like going from I guess like a full office to nobody, like really overnight, right?
It was a very big change. Yeah, it was very quiet. It was just weird. I mean, just the business. I had just a handful of guys. The phone was still ringing. Other, general contractors were still working. Most of those people were working from home. So the business in the bigger sense was still moving along, but
Right.
it was very different, very lonely.
No, yeah.
Me and the dog were here, so.
You and the dog.
But we were able to, I feel really lucky, we were able to keep at least some guys working and keep a little bit of production going during those 4 to 5 weeks.
Sure. So real quick before we kind of get into your pivot story, because I know a lot of people on here want to hear about, that not jump, but that transition from commercial to residential. But I kind of wanted to also let you guys just have a few minutes to tell everybody kind of the story of Elements. Where did you all come from to begin with? And I know it's hard to see it in this shot right here because we're in their very nice conference room, but this is just a little ocean town in California, and then you find Elements Manufacturing, and they're just pounding out boxes, It's just like, so how did that even come to be?
So the company was founded in 1995. There were 2 partners, Ken Ketch and Alan Storms, and Alan, we all live here, and we were very fortunate to be able to set up shop here in our hometown. We are a small town and kind of a tourist town, but we're very close to the Silicon Valley, which has been, there's been a lot of work, and we've really been able to take advantage of that. It wasn't always like that back in the early 90s. When the company first started, we're a pretty small shop. We always did a little bit of cabinets, and early on, Alan met up with a company out of the valley, and they were looking for a really specific housing component. This is for a clean room. They couldn't get anyone to build it, and Alan worked with them for a couple of months, and he put together a product out of Corian. So he had a pretty extensive background in residential and Corian, and he put together these housing units, and they started to really, it really took off.
Really?
The company was ordering production work, hundreds of them at a time.
Yeah.
So for the first 5 or 6 years in our shop out here, we had a whole production line. We had a Haas machine. We did very little cabinets.
Okay.
We did these housing, and it was really lucrative.
Yeah.
And it was a little bit of a niche for cabinet shop, kind of niche.
Yeah.
I came on board almost 19 years ago. I started working here, and Alan and I got married. And right when I started here, I knew nothing about cabinets. So I really came from no background. I didn't know anything about woodworking or this industry at all. And right when I came on board, they started phasing out these housing units. And so pretty quickly, we had to kind of refocus in the residential market. And so Alan started really working on high-end residential. We opened a little showroom up here in front, and I started out by selling countertops to residential customers.
Oh, wow.
Corian laminate countertops.
Yeah.
And so that was a really good introduction for me. I learned a lot about the business.
Sure.
And as the Silicon Valley kind of grew, we really saw an opportunity in the commercial market. There were, a lot of startups, a lot of businesses coming in. And so we made a decision to really go into that market. And we started working with general contractors. We closed the little showroom, and we really were able to expand in that market. And that's where we've been for 10, 15 years.
So you've pivoted before then?
Oh, yes. We were
several times.
So, yeah, it's been, as you know, the economy was really strong up until 2020. And it allowed us to really grow. As you see, when you guys go out in the shop, we were able to buy some really nice equipment, Holz-Her equipment, that allowed us to, be more productive and more efficient. And so we've, that's where we have been up until 2020. And again, we're starting to make a pivot back into residential.
Sure.
Yeah, so if you guys are watching, she did say we're going to tour their facility a little later, so please check in on that.
Yeah, we'll be out in the shop, top of the hour.
Yeah. So
yeah.
before we talk about the most recent pivot, let's give a shout out because we like to prove that we are live indeed. So we got Chad Sloan watching from North Carolina. Chad, I appreciate you being out on the road pounding, going and seeing as many customers as possible. Jason Nafis from the Hoosier State, and Tony from Sweden.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah, we're getting a little global player today.
Rock and roll. That's cool. Yeah. So Dave, why don't you tell us a little bit about the pivot that you guys have recently underwent to bring some of the production back to more of a residential market instead of a commercial market?
Well, I'll start that conversation by going back in time to the early 2000s. I came in not long after Kristy did.
Yeah.
I did know about assembly of cabinets because I'd worked in a number of cabinet shops as a young guy, but I didn't know anything about the business of cabinets.
Okay.
So I had a lot of learning
Sure.
to do. And when I came in, the company had just been starting to do commercial work. So the number one word for me was break rooms.
Oh, really? Is that right?
Break rooms. Figure out how to get break rooms.
Yeah.
So this was before a lot of the digital stuff had come. You didn't get plans online at that time.
Okay.
You had email.
Right. Yeah.
And there were websites, but that was kind of it.
Sure.
But in a way, it was an advantage because what I was doing at that time was going to general contractors,
Yep.
figuring out what big rolls of paper plans they had that
Yeah.
we could bid, filling my car with as many of those as I could, coming back, bidding those jobs, getting those jobs. In a lot of cases, I mean, we did really well during those days.
Sure.
And then project managing these cabinet jobs. And that's how I learned kind of the business side of the commercial millwork business. It was on break rooms. And we have a lot of those relationships still today with some of those general contractors, which is really a testament to the way Elements is as a business in terms of not just our business, not just our manufacturing process, but our business process in terms of being able to be a good business partner to these contractors. So that was my early introduction and our pivot into commercial. More recently, the pandemic hit us hard, like it did a lot of shops being in the commercial space.
Absolutely.
So we had two big areas that we really put our attention into. One is panel processing. Now, fortunately, we had a little head start on panel processing. We've been working on that for about a year before the pandemic hit. Ace? And that what I'm talking about panel processing is really two areas. One is cutting panels, banding, machining panels for closet companies.
Right. Yeah.
The other is other cabinet shops. And one of our big panel distributors that we buy laminated and melamine panels from, they have now been taking cut lists from their customers.
Yep.
So that when they'll drop off panels to us, we'll cut, machine, band them, put them back on their truck, and they'll deliver to another customer. So they're delivering completed parts to their customer. It's a really fun business. We really like it.
So so I just want to talk about that real quick because that's even kind of a different pivot that you all taken. This and you're calling it panel processing. I guess some other folks might call it component machining. Yep. And that is absolutely getting popular for the more, I guess you would say, medium-sized, efficient shops. You know, they have the capability out in the shops to do some volume, and they're basically selling to shops that don't have that capability, but those small shops are good at selling. They're good at proving their brand and delivering on their products, but they need some manufacturing help. Yeah.
We're perfectly set up from a manufacturing perspective, and at the top of the hour you'll see our CNC setup. But the technology is such these days that the business side is easy also, and I'll just tell you how we're doing that. We have a Google Sheet.
Yep.
That the customer goes and puts their part list in. I mean, it's as simple as that. And then I got a lot of calculation going on the back end.
Sure.
But as they're entering parts, they're seeing their price right there. So there's no mystery.
Okay.
They know what their job is going to cost. If they're going to have to bid that, they can go put their parts in first, see what the cost is, and then bid it if they want to. So it's been really simple to do that from a business perspective.
Right.
It's been a good business. So that's the first part.
I was just gonna say I want you to go into that second part with the residential and the online designer that you have.
Yeah. So the second part we were not set up for. Just back in the summer, we were like, okay, I think we're going to have to go back into residential. And to be honest, we had a lot of resistance to do it. It is, as you know, a very different business.
Right.
But we said, let's just bite the bullet and
Yep.
let's do it. Now, we did have an angle and a couple of things. One is we had already, for a couple of years, had a domain that we liked, that was catchy, easy to remember.
Sure.
And we said, let's just use that for residential cabinets. And that domain is Silicon Valley Cabinets.
Silicon Valley Cabinets. Easy.
Easy,
Right?
right?
Yeah, totally
Easy
easy.
to
Yeah,
remember.
yeah,
You say
absolutely.
it
Right.
once and somebody remembers it. They don't have to write it down.
Right. Yep. Sure.
Elements manufacturing is not so much.
Yep.
That's a little
Yeah.
harder. So we
Also
already
has
had
like a B to B feel to it, right?
Right.
Where
Right.
Silicon Valley Cabinets more B to C. Yeah, I'll
Right.
give you that.
And so we already had that. So it's like, let's use it. We've been
Right.
sitting on
Sure.
it for a couple of years.
Sure.
The other is that I had already visited the Almoxy offices out in Ogden, Utah.
Yeah.
I've seen that product. And just a plug here for the Quantum Lean tours.
Yep.
The reason I saw that is that Alan had the foresight to say, I want you and the shop foreman to go on the Quantum Lean tour. You're going to see some other shops and you're going to learn some things. And we did. We really did. One of them was Almoxy.
All Moxie. Yeah.
So Almoxy's offices are in Ogden. We spent a day there, and I was really impressed, and I felt like we could do it.
Yeah. Sure.
And so already had the knowledge, was already set up somewhat because we had begun setting it up for closets.
Okay.
So we had the domain, we had the technology, and we said, all right, let's pull the trigger on this. So we spent a little time getting it set up because Almoxy is not simple to set up.
Well, maybe we should
Yeah.
first, because we're making some assumption that everyone knows what all Moxie is. Maybe
Oh,
we should
good point.
first just kind of mention what is all Moxie.
Good point. Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you for saying that. So Almoxy is a browser-based cabinet design tool.
Right.
And it allows you to, it allows basically anybody, you don't have to have a lot of technical sophistication, you just have to have an internet connection and a web browser
Mhm.
to create an account for free and go in and set up your room, you know, the dimensions of your room, set up your specs. This is I want shaker fronts or I want slab fronts and I want melamine or laminate, whatever it is you want. Then start dragging cabinets into the room and setting their dimensions. So you,
Sure.
as a homeowner or a contractor, can design your own kitchen or garage or van or whatever. So it's a very cool tool. It's really high tech. It gives you these cool 3D models.
Yeah. Yeah.
It gives you the price right away. So if you're a contractor or a homeowner and you want to see how much this kitchen is going to cost, it's right there. There's no questions about it. It also gives us capabilities in the office, which is a lot of people don't want to deal with technology. They give us a sketch. We can just quickly go in, and I don't have to rely on our drafting team. We got a whole drafting department here, but I don't have to rely on them.
Right.
Do it myself. Give them a simple layout. Price is going to be. Then start drilling down on the details. It is very powerful technology. It's,
So how
and
long?
it's given us an advantage. We think it's given us a little bit of a marketing advantage.
And how long ago did you implement that front end? Would you say?
We kicked it off in mid-December.
Mid-December.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Pretty
So,
good.
I mean,
It's very new.
Yeah.
it's very wow. Okay, and you were just telling me the other day you've already had 10 jobs.
Done
come through
10
it.
jobs through it. Yeah, they've all been fairly small jobs, but you know, you got to start somewhere.
No, you guys got somewhere.
And they've gone pretty well.
How have you found the process from I guess from when customer specification to translating it then all into your shop?
It's been a learning process. We continue to learn.
Yeah.
And again, there's a lot of day-to-day conversation
Okay.
depending on what you're getting from the customers. But
Mhm.
in general, it's been pretty smooth as
Yeah.
far as what you get through Almoxy and being able to send that to the shop. And there are some differences. This isn't really our traditional custom cabinets like we would do kitchens through Elements.
Sure.
This is there's limited specs. It's not
Sure.
super high end. You know, there's limitations, but David's done an amazing job putting it together and being able to run jobs into the shop as we get them.
Yeah.
And have
Yeah.
these been primarily, and maybe I missed it, I was looking at some of the comments here, but have they been primarily the residential? So this is part of the pivot
It
into
is,
more
yeah.
residential.
It's actually been all residential.
Because both of you said early on when you first came to the business, it was you guys have had a focus in residential from commercial from the beginning.
Right.
We have, but we know residential.
Yeah.
You know, we've
Mhm.
always had residential jobs coming through. They've just been a very small
Right.
percentage of the total makeup.
Sure.
Now with the
Sure.
pivot, you said in August is when kind of the commercial tapered off a bit here in the valley, and so you had to have that pivot. So what was that? Was that scary? Was that, I mean, what were
Oh,
the
yeah.
feelings when
Yeah, it was.
It is
when all of a
scary.
sudden what you guys knew the most, it just wasn't happening, and you had to figure something else out?
Yeah, it was.
It is scary. I think we've been historically pretty good. Elements has been pretty good about dealing with the circumstances that you find yourself in and
Being
really
adaptive.
Mhm.
Yeah.
being innovative and
Yeah,
figuring
yeah.
out, okay, what do we have to work with and how can we, pivot into those arenas.
Right.
So, but yeah, it's scary and it's different and we're still learning.
Yeah. So one thing I'm kind of curious about is, and I think one thing that a lot of shops that are watching this kind of have that question about is, you've done it, especially commercial or residential. You've done one way of doing things for so long that you have just a good gut feel about profit, about margins.
Mhm.
You just kind of know what the raw material is going to come to, just about. You know how much labor is going to be in the job. How do you then transition that into residential? And obviously things are going to change. Did you guys feel like you had to have everything kind of like on paper making sense, or was it more of just like, we know we got to do this, let's do it, and we kind of figure it out as we go?
It's a great question, because I think the tendency, the inclination is to want to have everything figured out.
Like
first.
laid out.
We're not
yeah.
launching this till, but we hit so many places where we're like, it's probably right, but we've got to keep moving.
Right.
You cannot get stuck, because perfection really can be the enemy of progress. And
Right.
So we actually ended up doing more of the latter that you described,
Yeah.
Christian, where we said, we think this is pretty close. Let's go with it. Let's take the next step. And we launched it knowing that we would have to do a handful of jobs, then closely analyze our margins
Right.
and make some
Right.
adjustments.
Sure.
Which in fact we have. Two big adjustments that come to mind. One is RTA.
Yeah.
RTA is a fascinating, I mean, it is
Fascinating, no pun intended. Sorry, I had to go there, Dave.
not a fascinating, it's fascinating.
Oh, good one.
But that's a perfect point, though,
Yeah,
because
right.
fasteners is a big deal.
It
we
is,
looked at
it is.
OVO fasteners. We actually are set up to do rate fix and other things.
Mm-hmm.
We know Lamello. I mean,
Right,
we can
yeah.
do all that on our Holz-Her, right?
Yeah,
On our
yep,
Revolution.
yep, sure,
CNC
absolutely.
machine.
Yep.
But I'll tell you, the process of getting set up for RTA and expecting the customer to be able to embrace RTA, and we're talking about residential customers.
Right.
We said, let's pause this right now. We're
Okay,
adding so
yeah.
much technology and different processes in marketing, by the way, because
Mhm.
residential is a marketing game.
Sure.
That we said, let's just pause RTA for a little while. If somebody from Nevada calls and they want a 600 cabinet unit, room unit, cabinets, we can break out RTA and do it because we know how to do it. But right now, let's just pause that. And
Yeah.
so that was one of the big decisions that
Okay.
we made midway. We love the idea of RTA, but at the moment it's paused.
Sure.
The other one is, All Moxie really works very well with cabinet vision.
Okay. Yep.
We're a microvalve shop.
Oh, okay.
So our
Right.
drafting guys were like, what?
Yeah.
What?
That's true.
What are you trying to tell me? So we've had learning as well as kind of cultural pushback here.
Yeah. Sure.
I guess cultural is not the word, but we're used to microvellum. We are
Yeah.
very efficient in microvellum. We know it well. We've had it for 15 years,
Yeah.
something like that.
A lot of years.
So bringing cabinet vision in was like, whoa, hold on a second.
Yeah.
But we've gotten there, and we're still working out issues bringing these 3D models into cabinet vision,
Right.
and getting those released.
Yeah.
And sometimes we cheat. Sometimes we say, okay, forget cabinet vision, redraw it in microvellum.
Just
Yeah.
redraw.
Right?
Just
I mean, I just
redraw.
admit it right now.
Which there are so many
has
shops that
been-
do that. I mean,
Yeah.
there are so many shops out there that just say, you know
Well,
what,
software
we're just
becomes a
gonna redraw.
tool, like any other tool in your toolbox, right?
Yeah,
so
yeah,
you
that's
just
right.
pick the right software, the right tool for the right job.
Yeah. So this is a long answer to your question, Christian, but we have had to just accept that not everything's gonna be perfect out of the gate.
Right.
We're gonna have to make adjustments as we go. Now that we've got 10 jobs under our belt, though, and we've been doing it for almost 2 months, we're feeling pretty comfortable. We know how to manage our prices better. We're looking at our margins; they're okay.
Okay.
The jobs are moving through pretty well. One other little thing I'll tell you is that we decided on residential that we will install for you, but if we're going to install, we want a field measure. And that was one thing we
Okay.
didn't have early on. But
Interesting.
Kristy was like, you know what? Those installers are going to get out there, and stuff's not going to fit because the client didn't know how to measure this correctly.
And you're so true. It happens all the time.
Yeah.
So a lot of those little process things also we've had to add.
But now I have to imagine that, you know, when you go off into something brand new, like you guys have, I mean, you just described so many new things that you've done in the last 6 months.
Oh yeah.
but there has to be some level of comfort knowing that it doesn't have to be, you don't have to be frightened of trying something else new.
That is
and
exactly
you continue to tweak the process, you continue to try new things,
Absolutely.
and you're having success as a result. And that's one of the things I do want to hit on that, because you know, we talk about how our industry is a great industry for so many reasons, but we also talk about how the majority of our industry are shops like Elements Manufacturing that are able to make those decisions and can be so successful, make changes, veer the course, and just adapt with the times and continue to succeed. And that's been, I think that is certainly. This has certainly been an example of that, and how they've done all that they can. Just to, I mean, you have two choices. You can stop, you can sit still, or you can keep moving and try to do the best you can to be successful.
Yeah. So we got a few comments, few shout outs that and a question really. So and we can focus on that question here in a little bit. First of all, a couple shout outs from Chris in DC. We have a few of our we have a few Canadians watching this morning. Very nice.
Andre
Excellent.
from Calgary, Alberta.
So that's good. And then so we have a question.
Don't want to forget you, Jocelyn. Thanks for watching, Jocelyn.
We have a question from Brett Reed, who Andy and I know quite well, but you guys haven't had the privilege yet. But he wants to know, do you guys see any comeback on the commercial side in 2021?
We're hopeful.
Question.
It is a good question. I hopefully the worst is behind us as far as the pandemic, and I feel like, you know, we survived 2020 and we're still here. 21, I think, is gonna be a slow rollback to getting to commercial back, and we don't really know what that's gonna look like. You know, how many businesses are gonna have people working back in their offices? It's really, there's a lot of questions, a lot of uncertainty. What we're hearing from most of our general contractors is that the end of 2021 and into 2022 is looking pretty strong.
Okay.
So I'm hopeful that it'll pick up. I mean, you know, we're really good at commercial. That's where I prefer to be. Familiar, but again, there's still a lot of questions until the vaccine gets rolled out and people, you know, have a better idea of what's going to happen.
And you are, I mean, the commercial clients that you have, let's face it, this is the technology hub, right? This is where, and so if anyone is going to embrace remote work, it would be Silicon Valley, right?
That's exactly right.
So yeah, that's but I think what we have heard over the last several minutes is that while, you know, certainty is what we would all like. Uncertainty is, you know, it's always a little bit scary, but you guys have faced it. You continue to tweak. You continue to pivot, and Elements Manufacturing continues to be successful in no matter what comes, right? So even if, I have to assume, I don't want to speak out of turn, but if, let's say, Silicon Valley continues to work from home, and you don't get those big commercial jobs, well, you've put things in place to where you can pivot quickly, and you can focus on the residential side. So.
Yeah. So again, just to remind everybody, we are going on a shop tour in about 30 minutes. We'll be there out in the shop, top of the hour. We have the privilege of getting toured by Dave, so we're looking forward to that. See a couple Holz-Her machines out there as well, which is always exciting to us. So we're looking forward to that. That's going to be at the top of the hour in 30 minutes from now. And then it's obviously going to stay on Facebook and YouTube. Couple quick things, just kind of housekeeping notes. Is remember, if you're watching on Facebook, subscribe to our Facebook page. And if you're watching on YouTube, click subscribe on YouTube. We have a lot of cool videos on the channel, including answers from the tool room. And you want to kind of give everyone a rundown of what
Yeah,
that
really.
is?
Answers from the tool room is the next step in what we're doing with the YouTube channel. I don't know if I've talked about this on TCA, but I remember when we first started thinking about what was next. I could remember it was during the holidays, and my father-in-law had gotten a new smoker, and he was going to YouTube to figure out how to smoke a brisket on the specific brand smoker. And I thought, man, you know, there are so many people that are using YouTube. I think Christian has said that it's the second most used search engine now.
Yeah.
And they're using it for quick answers of how people can do normal everyday things.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought, wouldn't it be? It's great we need something like that.
Yep.
And so Christian has run with it. We have answers from the tool room. We are trying to fill content based on what we're getting from the field, from our technicians, from our customers, from our agents, as to what questions they get asked the most. Because in many cases, they are asked these questions over and over and over, and it's something that's a pretty simple remedy, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're trying to create searchable content that's useful content. If you subscribe to the channel and you allow it to send you notifications, then you'll get notified every time Christian puts up a new one. He's trying to put one up every week.
Yep.
We continue to get lots of information in, lots of questions or lots of suggestions in for what we'll add to that, and we're going to continue to add to that. So if you'll subscribe to the channel, not only will you get notified when we put things up like that, you'll also get notified when we go live from Elements Manufacturing here shortly.
That's right. And one more thing is 4 answers in the tool room. Great series. If you guys have suggestions on what you want covered, right now we're pretty much just making videos based on comments that we've received on social media. I mean, a lot of good feedback. So again, if you all have questions, if you all have Holz-Her or Weinig machines, and you're just curious about certain features on them, certain maybe some PM measures on them, let us know. Put a comment in one of our videos. Let us know in this stream what you want covered, and we'll put together an answers from the tool room video about that. So yeah. All right. So that's gonna do it for TCA. Kristy, Dave, thank you guys.
Thank you
so
guys.
much. Great hospitality. Awesome shop here.
Great story.
Oh yeah.
Of succeeding in uncertain times.
Awesome story of being adaptive and successful. Remember, everyone, stay tuned on Facebook and YouTube. At the top of the hour, we are going to be streaming live from the shop. We're going to just do a full walkthrough. Another manufacturing tour walkthrough is going to be great. We'll learn all about the processes, see some pretty cool equipment run.
Yeah.
And so we're looking forward to that. Again, guys, thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been great.
Thanks, Andy. Thanks, Kristen.